Hi, I'm Waveformer, and this is a tutorial on how to create a ratcheting effect on the Korg Wavestate. Ratcheting means retriggering a note or a step in a sequence multiple times. You could also call it note repeat. It's frequently used in the Berlin School type of electronic music. In this tutorial, I'll show you one way of creating this effect on a Korg Wavestate synthesizer. Let's begin with an init patch. Init Performance, it's called on the Wavestate. We'll go to the timing lane right away and switch the step type to gate. So we have no crossfading between the wave samples. It's just one wave sample at a time. Next, we will turn on the Arpeggiator, switch on hold or latch as it's called here, turn off sorting and set the resolution to, let's see, an 8th note. And the tempo we can set with enter and tap tempo and set it to around, let's say 140. Like this. Okay. Let's go to the amp envelope and set the decay to, no, let's turn the sustain way down and set the decay to 1 second. Next up, we will set the envelope curve to D10. Let's see, decay set to 10 means the envelope is a bit more punchy. You can hear that. That's the linear setting. And the exponential setting to 10, it's more punchy. Same thing with the filter. We will try MS-20 simulated filter on this one. Let's dial down the cutoff a bit. And set the resonance to 0. And we will use the filter envelope. I will set the envelope amount to 49 or something like that. And a little bit of key track as well. So the higher notes will have a bit more high frequency and not roll off so quickly. We move into the filter envelope. Turn the attack to 0. And as for the amp envelope, we pull down the sustain and set the decay to around 1 second. And also here we will go into the second menu and set the decay curve to 10, so it's more punchy. Let's see how this sounds. Okay. It's kind of a boring sound I can hear right away, so let's move into the sample lane and select another wave sample. This is a sine wave, so changing the filter doesn't really do much. So let's switch into a more classic waveform, a saw wave. Like this. Okay, and then to get the note repeat or ratcheting effect, we will use the amplitude LFO. Go in here, turn the tempo sync on and set the frequency to 30-second note. The waveform, let's set that to square waveform. We leave the intensity at 0 because we are not going to modulate the amplitude directly, but rather we want to use the amplitude LFO to trigger the envelope, both the filter envelope and the amplitude envelope. Let me show you how that works. If we move into the amplitude envelope and then go all the way to the left, we can set trigger source. It's now set to off, but instead we can set it to the amp LFO. So we press enter and hit the amp LFO. Okay, you can hear there's something going on there, but as we're not triggering the filter at the same time, the second triggers are a bit muted. So let's go to the filter. No, sorry. We're done with the trigger source for the amp envelope. We're moving on to the filter envelope and setting the trigger source there to the amp envelope. Okay, so now you can hear the ratcheting. If we go to the amp envelope again and turn down the frequency, we can select how many note repeats we want. All the way from just one note to 2 notes, 3 notes and up. However, having every note repeat on each step is kind of boring. We just want to have one or a few notes repeat now and again. So one way to do that is to use the step wave sequence lane to control when the ratcheting should occur. And then we can use the mod processor to multiply the output from the amp LFO with the value of each step in the step sequence. So let's do that. We will go into, let me just turn down the frequency of the amplitude LFO right away. I'll set it to an 8th note. And then let's move into the mod processor. Hit the mod button and menu right. This is mod processor 1. We will set the type here to scale. That's the same as multiply. So whatever we set on the step sequencer here will be multiplied by the value coming out of the amplitude LFO. So scale, and the first input will be the amp LFO. So we hit enter and the amp LFO. Okay. And the second input or the scale source we set to the step sequencer. So enter and hit step sequence and enter again. Okay, we have now set up the mod processor to take the amp LFO input and the step sequencer input and multiply them, combine them. And next we will set up the filter envelope and the amp envelope to trigger on the mod 1 process. So enter and mod process 1 for the filter envelope, and for the amp envelope same thing, enter and mod process 1. Okay, that's it. We will set the trigger threshold to 100 for the amp LFO and for the amp envelope and for the filter envelope. So the value of the step sequence multiply with the amplitude LFO must be 100% or higher for the envelope to trigger. Okay, so let's go into the step sequence and step A1. You can see the value here is 100%. Let me just go back to the amp LFO. I will increase the rate here. Let's say I want 3 repeats per step. So back to the amp LFO. Okay, I set the value at 1%. I will have the repeats. And if I set it to 0%, I will have no repeats, no ratcheting. Okay. Let me see. Let's add some more steps. On step 1 we have 0%. On step 2 we can have 1%. And then we need to add some more steps. Let's see here. Right, add steps to end. Step 3 will be at 0%, and now we have 3 steps. Let's have 16 steps. So we go to this step, add steps to end. 3 plus 13, that's 16. So now we have 16 steps, and only step 2 has a value larger than 0%. So if we go to the step sequencer now and increase the loop end, like this, and then set the step sequence to note advance mode. So for every note, the step sequence will advance 1 step, like this. You see, when we're on the second step, you can hear that we get the ratcheting effect. If we increase it all the way to 16, we get the ratcheting effect only once for 16 steps. Okay, that's one simple way of getting the ratcheting effect. Of course, we might want to have a different number of repeats on some of the steps. So let's see if we can set up that. If I set the amp LFO to back to an 8th note, that means basically just one trigger per step. But then I can set up a modulation to have the step sequencer modify the amp LFO frequency. So let's see if I can do that. I have selected amp LFO frequency, and then I add the modulation, hitting the mod button and page plus button, and enter to modulate the current parameter, which is the amp LFO note, and the source, waiting for a source, step sequencer lane. And intensity, we will set that to a negative value. So the higher the step sequencer value, the shorter the note in the repeat will be. So let's go back into step 2 here and increase the frequency here. See if I set it to around 33 or something, you can hear there are 2 repeats per note. Let me decrease the loop length a little bit so you can hear it more frequently. So 4 steps, step number 2 repeats twice. If we increase the value here, so say around 60, sounds like about 3 notes. 70, maybe 4 notes, it's a bit difficult to count. Maximum, I don't know, 5 or 6 notes. I lose count. But let's go back to 70. 75, so that's 4 notes. And then let's go to another step. If we increase the step sequence length to 16 again, we are back to only step 2, which has note repeats. Let's add a note repeat on step 6 as well. But instead of 4 repeats, we will have only 2, so around 33%. So let's see. So at 2, 6 repeats, and at 6, we will have 2 repeats. So 4 repeats at 2, and 2 repeats at 6. Let's add some effects here. We'll add some mod effects. Let's see. Let's add the small phaser. That's a nice one. It's a bit too much of a wet signal, so let's dial it down a little bit. Something like that, just a little bit. And then some reverb. The overb type, and let's see. The Ultima Vega Star preset. Nice. Okay, so since this is the Wavestate, wave sequencing of samples is kind of the first thing people think about. So let's sequence some samples. We'll go to the sample lane. We have 2 steps there already, but we will add some more. Let's add 14 steps, so we have 16 steps altogether. We will turn on Note Advance, so we move from step to step. And to preview each step, we hit the Enter button and the step number. So on the first couple of steps, we have a saw. Third step, a saw chroma, so it's a slight variation. And then let's move along. A saw and square. On step 5. Let's just do a plain square. That sounded like it was 1 octave down. Maybe it's just because it's a kind of a darker tone. Let's try with 1 octave up on this step. And also I think it was a bit loud, so I will trim it down a little bit. Like this. Okay, moving on. Okay, we now have 16 steps from saw. And lots of different cool wave samples as a variation. Okay, we will turn off preview, and then we are ready to loop through the wave samples. Cool. This introduces a lot of variation to the tone here. Okay, I would like to be able to control the decay times for the amplitude envelope and the filter envelope together, so I'll set up a modulation for that. So filter envelope, decay time, add a modulation, enter to modulate current parameter, and source, let's set it to the master performance knob. Okay, and intensity, I don't know, 4 or something. Okay, that's the filter envelope decay, and I will do the same for the amplitude envelope decay. Add modulation and source the first performance modulation knob, and same thing here, set it to 4 something, like this. And finally, I would like to be able to modulate with the same knob the sustain level for the amplitude envelope. With an intensity of around 70. Okay? So at center position, it's the 1 second decay as I've set here. And then if I twist the knob to the right, the decay will be longer, and to the left, the decay will be shorter. This is particularly cool if we have delay going, so let's try that. We'll use a stereo cross delay. The presets 1/8 note dotted low pass filter. Okay, a wet dry ratio of around 40. Cool. Let's dial down the feedback a little bit for now. Yeah. Oh, a bit more feedback, I think, on the delay. Also change the filter cutoff frequency. Plays really nicely with the delay when you change the decay time and the cutoff frequency for the filter. I'm lazy, so I don't really want to twist those knobs all the time. So let's set up an automation to do that. I'll just turn off the delay at the moment so you can hear what's going on. I'd like to have the pitch LFO modulate the decay of the filter and the amplitude envelopes. So let's have a look at the pitch LFO. I'd like the modulation to be really slow, so something like 0.070. So that's, I don't know, 12, 13 seconds for one period. Of the waveform. Let's not use the triangle waveform, but let's see. Okay, the exponential triangle waveform. So the LFO will have a high value in the middle approximately, and then a low value for the rest. Okay. We will sync notes. That means that the LFO will continue running as the notes play. It will not reset on each note. Okay, and then that's the LFO, and we will then set up the modulation. So filter decay, I hold on enter and turn decay. And then at the modulation, press enter to modulate current parameter, filter envelope decay time, and we will modulate that with the pitch envelope. Intensity times 2 or something. You can already hear there's some variation now. I'll go to sample and then set loop start to A1, same as loop end, so it's only this saw wave. Okay. I will add the same type of modulation to the amp envelope decay. So enter and turn the decay button, and then add modulation, press enter, waiting for the source, which will be the pitch LFO. Enter to continue, and intensity of 2. And then finally we will add the modulation on the sustain level of the amplitude envelope as well, so that allows us to hear more of the decay and the longer note. So enter and sustain, and then add modulation with mod and plus, and then the source of the modulation should be the pitch envelope, and intensity around 70. Let's see if we can hear that. Do you hear that? Longer decay time, and no shorter. Okay, I will also use the filter LFO to modulate the filter cutoff itself. So filter LFO, waveform can be triangle, that's okay, but I want the frequency to be really slow, so around 0.06, and then we can set the intensity to, let's see, around 9. Yeah, forgot to turn on the sync notes. So now we have the two LFOs going. The filter LFO controls the filter cutoff, and the pitch LFO controls the decay time for the filter and amplitude envelopes. Let's bring in the delay again. And then bring in some more wave samples. Basically all for this tutorial. I will just jam a bit with this patch. So thank you for watching, and see you next time.